find out if this shows us anything.
The bosses in Crimson Desert are powerful. I mean, really powerful. As the formidable Staglord grabbed me by the ankle and hurled me into a wall, the bone-crunching impact reminded me of how the strangest blows catapulted Kratos through tree trunks and mountains in God of War.
Yeah, but God of War looked way better.
This intense, deity-like physicality lends Crimson Desert's battles a sense of genuine spectacle. These are the gladiator battles of myths.
First preview of Crimson Desert. That's a cool looking boss mob.
Last month, during an hour-long hands-on session at Gamescom 2024, I was able to go toe-to-toe with 3 different bosses, each of which showcased a different side to this fantasy action game's approach to battle. More recently, I was able to watch another hour of gameplay, this time a hands-off demonstration focused on exploration and questing. Together, these demos have given me a good indication of what Crimson Desert is. A game with combat that feels like a mix of God of War and Dragon's Dogma, set in a wider world where what you do is more reminiscent of the modern Assassin's Creeds and The Witcher 3. You play as Cliff, a warrior with a gruff Scottish accent and a no-nonsense attitude. After a prologue establishes a bloody conflict between the Greymanes and the marauding Black Bears, Cliff's major goal is made clear. Explore the continent of Pywell in search of his surviving Greymane allies who have been scattered following the battle.
Okay.
Die, Greymane!
The bulk of the hands-off demonstration is set in Hernand, a medieval town populated by a fun range of fantasy races that wouldn't look out of place in any Tolkien-esque fantasy story. Cliff's interactions around its very beautifully rendered streets and roads are very much what you'd expect of a modern open-world action-adventure game. There's a horse you can whistle for, NPCs to be spoken to, and hostile regions to infiltrate. That last one is where Crimson Desert has a little fun, as the demo shows Cliff changing into Hernandian banquet attire in order to walk past the castle's guards unnoticed.
Let me go back on that.
Into Hernandian banquet attire in order Desert has a little fun, as the demo...
Okay. So this is the UI stuff I've been wanting to see more of. He's got weapons, armor, and character stuff. Looks like there's a lantern, which is reminiscent of Dragon's Dogma. We've got health, spirit, stamina, attack, defense, reputation, attack speed, movement speed, critical hit chance, and a battery. Okay, there's some weirdness going there that I don't know what it all relates to. But what drove me nuts is that during the middle of combat, he was constantly opening up the radial menu in the middle of combat to eat food, and that drives me nuts. Like, if it needs to be on a hotkey, like on the D-pad or L1, you know, R1, whatever, having to open up a radial menu to pause combat continually takes me out of the action part of your action RPG. So hopefully that's something that they can change or polish up. But otherwise, you know, this looks like stuff we've seen in many other games.
Shows Cliff changing into Hernandian banquet attire in order to walk past a castle's guards unnoticed.
Oh, wait.
Seems like a permit. No clue where he got it.
We don't look like the troublemaking type.
Right, he can pass then.
Open a gate.
Much like how you can wear disguises in games like Hitman and Kingdom Come Deliverance. I hope there are plenty of opportunities to do this, and various outcomes to your trickery. It would be fun if you could use disguises to open up new conversations, as well as gain entry into forbidden areas.
Well, now you're doing suppositions, so... None of that is confirmed, kids.
Inside the castle, Cliff pilfers an Abyss artifact, which is where Crimson Desert gets a little more unusual. Yeah, the device opens up a pixelated portal in a wall, and walking through it transports Cliff to the Library of Providence. There, an alchemist called Alastin reveals that the library is at the center of all worlds, and that there are beings who plan to bring everything to nothingness.
What is the reason you brought me here?
There are beings who brought chaos to Providence. The rifts they have created will return everything to nothingness.
While I can't say I'm impressed by Crimson Desert's writing in this demo, this exchange and several others feel cluttered and wrapped up in themselves. But it does point to a much grander, more mythical plot beyond Cliff's hunt for his allies. That ambition of something larger is made abundantly clear when Alastin's ally, White Crow, gives Cliff the glider-like Crow Wings ability, which allows him to leap off the library's floating island and reenact the Zelda Tears of the Kingdom's title sequence.
This did look pretty cool, because I'm assuming all of this is explorable space, which is very impressive in terms of size of the game world. Because that's all stuff you can ride to on your horse or jump off and glide to.
It's a little bold to use this motif. Can developer Pearl Abyss really craft something that lives up to the wider meaning of that iconic visual? But even if it falls short, the magnificent view and subsequent glide to Earth is a thrill all the same. Back on the ground in Hernand, a local peacekeeper tasks Cliff with finding and eliminating some local bandits who fight using a red mist. Heading out in search of such villains, Cliff comes across a burning house and throws nearby vases of water to save the clergyman trapped inside. It's not clear from the demo if such objectives organically occur around the map, Red Dead Redemption 2 style, but what is soon clear is that this blaze is the work of those aforementioned bandits. The local church says one of their men, Hubert, fled the scene in an attempt to bait the enemies away, and asks Cliff to find him. The payment is another one of those Abyss artifacts, once again suggesting that the worlds beyond worlds are of vital importance to Crimson Desert's story. I hope this results in a decent amount of weirdness that helps set the largely typical setting apart from other fantasy games.
Oh, I didn't see anything that set it apart too much yet. I need to know more for sure.
Hubert is found at a bandit camp that allows the demo to show off Cliff's stealth abilities.
Okay.
It's pretty classic stuff and looks very reminiscent of silent takedowns in the Assassin's Creed games. Not particularly challenging, but an alternative option to Crimson Desert's more publicised melee
Show the
brawls.
bow.
Hopefully
Show
when we
the
go
bow.
hands-on again,
Show the
stealth
bow.
will prove a worthwhile addition rather than a shallow
not going to.
tacked-on
This is the same
extra.
video
With
footage
Herbert
we just
freed,
watched.
Cliff is approached by the Goblin Shakatu, a merchant of the Gold Leaves Guild. He explains that the Gold Leaves are currently under the command of the evil Splithorn. In return for killing this toxic leader, Shakatu offers money and his services, things Cliff believes will be helpful in finding the missing Greymanes.
I merely wish us to turn over a new leaf.
I
A
guarantee you
return to
world
our
size is
former
limiting what they could do with graphic
Arriving
fidelity.
at the Gold Leaf
100%.
camp, it quickly becomes clear how all these quests are
100%.
linked. The Goblin Guards use Red Mist as part of their battle tactics, and so reveal themselves as the very same miscreants that were causing trouble for the people of Hernand. And so Splithorn's death not only allows Shakatu to take over and help Cliff, but also fulfills the task set by the Peacekeeper back in town. I hope Crimson Desert features plenty more of these overlapping storylines, and forms a wider narrative that feels enjoyably interlaced. That would certainly make up for the uneven quality of the writing shown in the demo. Splithorn acts as the culminating boss fight of the hands-off demo, which brings us to the much more exciting side of Crimson Desert. He's agile and aggressive, wielding a sword that emits blasts of wind in vertical and horizontal patterns, forcing Cliff to dodge and block as he attempts to close the distance. But he's a pipsqueak compared to the brutes I face myself in the hands-on demo at Gamescom. The first of the 3 bosses I clashed with was the Stag Lord. He's a relentless attacker, charging across the battlefield like a bullet train that can suplex you at its final destination. But despite his endless strength and capacity to throw you like a baseball, he's only human. I forced distance between us, quickly firing explosive arrows to knock him out of his attack pattern and open up a window to bury my blade in
There's
his
the
back.
bow. We're finally
the Stag Lord
seeing the bow
proves
in
a
action.
real challenge
Okay,
of a
cool,
fight.
perfect.
Crimson Desert is
That's all
not
I
even
cared.
remotely
Show me
as
the bow.
Souls-like, but it's not afraid to make you work really hard for victory. I spend much of the lengthy fight learning the complexities of its combat system. Similar to this year's Dragon's Dogma 2, there's no lock-on, and so I have to be mindful of where I position Cliff and where his sword will land.
Oh, hold on. No target lock-on sucks ass. I am so sorry. I don't like games that don't have target lock-on. That blows. That's a major point against.
Rolling forward allows me to instantly follow up with a sweep kick that surprises my foe, and then hitting both the light and heavy attack buttons together unleashes a wide, particle effect spraying strike that cleaves a chunk out of the Stag Lord's health bar. All this is speedy without sacrificing weight. It feels fantastic, but it's also easy to let things run away from you. I soon realise I need to be chowing down on health restoring food with addiction-like frequency.
Yeah, that sucks. That sucks bad if you're having to do that constantly. Maybe you just need to get good. You don't need to eat as much food.
With the Stag Lord defeated, I take his mighty sword and shield, and the demo skips me ahead in the story, throwing me into snow-coated lands. Here, Cliff is looking for children who have seemingly been sacrificed to some kind of mountain spirit. Such a spirit turns out to be the White Horn, a sort of antlered, abominable snow deer that acts as the first showcase of just how different each of Crimson Desert's bosses can be. This colossal creature moves like a bucking bronco, and its galloping charges cause the mountains around us to break out in miniature avalanches that leave me temporarily frozen in place. Thankfully, after striking it so much that its white fur is stained almost completely red, I'm able to clamber onto its back in the fight's second phase and stab away at its flesh.
Roids.
The moment once again had me recalling my battles with towering monsters in Dragon's Dogma 2 earlier this year. Unlike the little split horn back at the Goblin camp, these much larger bosses have 3 health bars, with each one eliminated increasing the intensity of the fight. But where the Stag Lord and White Horn scraps seem to escalate much like many other action game boss battles, my final battle against the Queen Stoneback Crab demonstrated Crimson Desert's ambition to create memorable moments through very different mechanics. The Queen Stoneback Crab is colossally big, it fills the screen, and smartly, you can't fight it by just hacking away at its shins. Instead, the battle is a puzzle set piece that's clearly inspired by Shadow of the Colossus. I clamber onto the crab's stony shell and grab onto the grass and flora that forms its fur, holding on for dear life while pulling myself up towards a trio of rock formations. Using a special punch skill, I shatter each of the rocks to expose a weak point that I plunge my blade into. Each open wound causes a geyser of water to blast out, which not only provides a visual spectacle, but also throws me high into the air. From above, I'm able to float down using the Crow Wings ability and plan on how to tackle the next stage. Now I'm tasked with destroying the pottery-like crown at the peak of the crab's mountain-like shell, a task completed by swinging Spider-Man style from a web and colliding with the pottery at full speed. It's all delightfully bonkers.
Okay. That all looks really cool.
My hour-long session wasn't quite long enough to try all 4 of the bosses the demo had to offer, but a video presentation provided a quick insight into the only one I missed, the Reed Devil, a weird little guy who creates copies of himself that can only be defeated by destroying totems that are built during the battle. Along with the 3 I fought, all 4 bosses make a promise that Crimson Desert features an array of creative, unique centerpiece battles.
So these are the boss fight
videos
videos that they released during Gamescom.
Then Pearl Abyss could really have something special on its hands. I'm similarly impressed by the combat system's fundamentals. Yes, it's all quite Fantasy 101. Bows, swords, shields, parries, but it's all delightfully aggressive and properly impactful. There's a seemingly deep combo system too, and it's because of that I wish the demo had had a section that was a little more relaxed for me to sample. The heat of a relentless boss battle isn't quite the space to learn and perfect button sequences, but I've got a good feeling you can pull off some cool stuff based on the combos that I did learn. It's a big green light for Crimson Desert's combat then. As for its adventuring chops, things are looking a little more conventional. Pearl Abyss certainly seems to be making a solid enough transition from the MMORPG design of Black Desert Online into single-player territory. But I don't think anything shown in the hands-off demo particularly breaks new ground.
That's what I was saying.
Much of it is very familiar if you've played the likes of Assassin's Creed or The Witcher 3.
Exactly.
Nonetheless, it does look largely well put together. While I do hope that the Abyss artifact storyline goes suitably off the wall, I'd like to see the more typical fantasy storylines find suitable hooks to ensure regular gameplay feels more varied and creative than what we've seen so far. With a combat system that shifts from classic sword and board action to slingshotting Spider-Man style round a walking mountain, the questing and exploration side of Crimson Desert ideally also needs to aspire to that kind of diversity. But even if it doesn't, this latest slice of gameplay certainly suggests that the bridges between epic boss battles will be solid, if not the most memorable aspect of the experience. For more from Crimson Desert, check out the entire 52-minute gameplay demo.
Which we just
and
watched.
For everything else, stick with IGN.
So I would say they mirrored what I said during the 52-minute demo, which was it doesn't look like they're breaking any new ground here overall. It's a standard action adventure RPG, but they did show off in this video some of those mechanics during the boss fights, which look a little different, like the giant crab that they were fighting. That looks kind of cool. So I think there might be some uniqueness in the combat, but I would really need to know more about the story. Right now, from what I've seen from that 52-minute thing, the story looks a little mid, and that was one of my, I played Dragon's Dogma 2 earlier this year. I enjoyed my time in Dragon's Dogma 2, but I was also very frustrated by the time I was done with it with some of the aspects of like not enough fast travel, being forced to fight endless waves of mobs just to do anything meaningful in the game, and it got really tiring really quick to kill endless waves of wargs and orcs and little bullshit as you travel through the woods trying to get to the next, boss fight. And if the game is only made up of boss fights, I personally, I'm not a. That's why I don't play the Monster Hunter series. Like, it's not my cup of tea. But if they can pull off a decent enough story, even if it's not wholly original, that'll be enough to hold my attention and to make this into something that could be a memorable game to play, or at least something that I'm interested in bringing to the channel next year. I'm intrigued by this for sure. I need to know more before I can commit. It's definitely, I mean, it's not something that we're going to be playing anytime soon because still don't think they have any release dates anywhere. I would say they're probably just testing the waters with this footage to see what kind of feedback they're getting, to know what they need to focus on polishing through the rest of this year leading into a 2025 release, if I had to guess. So, this is the Crimson Desert Zelda NAC video.